our studio today we have a number of individuals from the National Literacy Unit within the Ministry of Education. And of course, we will ask them to introduce themselves very briefly before we get into dealing with the issues in education.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Odin, and I'm the head of the National Literacy Unit.
Samantha Williams, Education Officer attached to the National Literacy Unit.
I'm Grace Brummel, the National Literacy Coordinator for Schools.
And of course, I'm yours truly, Murray Greenwich. Today we are going to be talking about some of the issues that relate to education. And of course, the National Literacy Unit, we know, has been tasked with addressing most of these issues. I believe that it's such a large topic that, we wouldn't be able to exhaust it in just today's exercise. So this is just the introduction, part one, more or less. Mr. Odin, you have brought, to the unit a wealth of experience in literacy. Tell us something about your perceptions of literacy.
I think that literacy is for life. I think literacy is job one. Literacy determines how well a child succeeds in school in any other area. And literacy determines how a citizen succeeds in a country. So for me, literacy is job one. And it means that we as educators and we as citizens of this country need to make certain that every child and every individual has the opportunity to become literate.
Now, we say that investing in education is the fundamental premise on which development takes place in any country. Of course, Samantha, I guess you would want to share some ideas here. What do you think of, investing in literacy and investing in education as the base on which development can occur?
First of all, if we don't have a population that is functionally literate, then they will not be able to produce and to move a country forward to where it's supposed to be. So literacy, as Mr. Odin said, it's the most important thing. It's number one. And the Ministry of Education has embarked on a number of programs and initiatives to show the extent to which we believe in our stated goal or objective, which says if we want to eliminate illiteracy, because we understand that if we don't eliminate illiteracy, then Guyana is not going to be where it is supposed to be.
And of course, we want to be very competitive on a global market. Chris, what are your thoughts on this?
If we are to be competitive in the global market, it simply means that our students have got to be in the right place. If they are not literate, more often than not, they would not be able to contribute. It's not to say that they're not times when you have persons who are not literate still being able to function in such a manner that they can produce and produce well. But the thing is, the way society is going now, it is imperative that our students be able to read and to compute numbers. So I'm saying if we want to really compete in the global market, our students have got to be literate. And so this is the line we are taking, and the ministry has decided that we are going to do as much as we possibly can to help our students who seem to be lagging or struggling, if we want to say, behind.
Of course, we cannot separate or leave out the aspect of numeracy, because literacy and numeracy go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
In any intervention or any program for remediation, the two of these are basically inseparable.
Yes.
So I'm sure that Mr. Odin, when we look at our remediation programs, that literacy and numeracy must complement each other. Uh, Tell us the literacy unit. I mean, I know you've got a number of great initiatives going. Uh, some of the issues that we face in education has got to do with underperforming, underachieving students. What are you doing for the grade 6 students that would have, not achieved what they should?
Certainly, we have put a program in place to address the needs of grade 6 students in the area of literacy and also numeracy. The grade 6 students have written the grade 6 national assessment, but that is not the end of the program. It's a continuation. It's one step of that program. What we have happening at this point is that we have an intervention program for those students who were experiencing difficulty in numeracy and literacy. So we've put a program in place and are supporting that program so that those students' literacy and numeracy outcomes can be increased so that we can get them ready for a successful entry into grade 7 so that they can be successful in grade 7. For the remainder of the grade 6s, we are asking teachers, and we've asked teachers to extend those students' understanding of the concepts that they have covered so we can stretch their thinking and increase their understanding of what they've covered. Another part of the program is that certainly they are stretching students so that they can prepare them for grade 7 also.
Great. Let's back up a bit. Samantha, some of these students, they're not performing the way they should. What do you think could be some of the contributory factors to them not really performing the way they should?
There are many factors that could contribute to poor performance. We have to think about attendance and punctuality. At school, that's important. If a child is not there, the child will miss some of the curriculum coverage, and therefore the child would be at a decided disadvantage because of that. We have to think in terms of their socioeconomic background, parents not being able to provide all the necessary amenities for the child. We're talking here about nutrition. The child might be at school, the child might be present at school, but because the child has other needs that haven't been met, the child's mind is not there to focus on what is taking place in the classroom. That could be another factor that would account for poor performance. And there are many other factors that can account for that as well.
I'm quite sure that you'll agree with me that there's some socioeconomic issues which impact in the classroom. Grace, what do you think as teachers, we should look for to assist our children that are not performing against that background of socioeconomic challenges?
Teachers have become parents for many students who go to school. They have become a second parent, I must say. Sometimes I almost want to think they're first and foremost. We need to remember that. And parents, I think, need to remember that they are the children's first teacher. So they need to do certain things in the home before their children come to school. But more often than not, it's not done. So they come to school with lots of problems, and teachers are saddled with these children who have so many social issues. More often than not, issues that teachers cannot solve.
But many times the children just need to have that consolation to know that somebody is there for them.
Absolutely, that is what I was going to say. I often say that teaching is a divine appointment. And when you go into the school system, regardless of some of the negative comments you may hear about teachers. Teachers are more often than not there for children. Sometimes the hug the teacher gives the child is the only hug that child may have experienced in a long time. I've known teachers who would have shared lunches with children because they were hungry. I've known teachers who would have taken money out of their pockets and given it to children to get home at the end of the day. Many reasons. So teachers are expected to be caring. They're expected to be loving. And I know many times children get that.
And of course, the whole aspect of mentorship comes into focus here.
Absolutely.
Well, so much said for all the peripherals concerning teaching as it relates to dealing with the home and the parent and all of that. Let's come right back, Samantha, to dealing with this grade 6 intervention. We've established that there are some children who have not been performing as they should, and thus the ministry has embarked on this initiative to ensure that they would be brought up to speed in preparation for grade 7. Tell us, what can these grade 6ers expect in terms of this remediation program?
I can tell you that they can expect to have fun while they're learning. What we have tried to do is to present the program in such a way that it's integrated. So instead of teaching separate subjects, we're using an integrated approach where we use, for example, in the literacy component, we use a story and we show them how they learn all the language elements from that one story. So from the story, you learn phonemic awareness, you learn phonics, you learn comprehension, you do some writing based on the story, you do some vocabulary, grammar, and what we're trying to do is to more or less bombard the children with the same concept over and over so that it makes
Repetition.
it easier for them to learn. Because what we have learned from studies before is that children who are struggling, they learn through repetition. And so if we have a program that is structured in such a way that the children are bombarded with the same concepts, chances are they're going to perform better.
This sounds exciting. The whole approach of integrated integration. Mr. Odin, from your experience, how do you see this integrated approach, being used effectively by teachers?
I think that coming from a background where we spend a lot of time on what we call brain-based teaching, I think that the integrated approach is one of the best practices in terms of teaching literacy. The brain continually looks for connections.
Right.
And basically, the integrated approach ensures that there are connections, so the brain is making meaning. And as it is making meaning, it is learning. So it means that the things that the brain is learning at that time, or the child is learning at that time, is going into long-term memory instead of being shed after being in short-term memory after a while. So certainly that is a critical element in the program that was developed. It's one of the best practices. It means that teaching thematically is something that is so critical for any program to be successful. Certainly you have to make certain, as Samantha is saying, that there's repetition. But you have to make certain that the child can see how the pieces fit together as a whole. It's like the coat hanger. When you have the integration, basically the brain is looking for meaning and connections, and when it sees that connection, then it's able to hang it onto something.
And at the same time, you're not, the student is not overwhelmed with the volume of information that's being channeled in that direction at any one time. I find that the integrated approach exposes the student as well to appreciate the same thing from a number of angles. And despite the fact that you've got social studies, you've got language, you've got math, because it's so integrated, they see the relevance, and thus you get knowledge transfer, which is good because it's not taught in a vacuum, you know. Grace, it's not taught in a vacuum.
No, it's not. The thing about the integrated approach is that students see a process. Let us say we're talking about, there's this story that speaks about children who may be taller than others and that kind of stuff. We talk about, if we want to bring out grammar, we can look at child, one child, many children. That same knowledge, that one child is taller than the other or shorter than the other, could lead them to measurement. And so, it's mathematics.
Numeracy.
You bring all your materials, your tape measures, your meter ruler, what have you, and students engage in measurement. You have art, where they can draw. And to bring out the concept of tall, taller, tallest, stuff like that. That says you are using the integrated approach to teaching, where all the components in the curriculum are linked.
At the same time, you're giving the child the opportunity for expression.
Absolutely. When we're going to talk about vocabulary, every content area has its own vocabulary. We just do not have vocabulary in literacy or language per se. You have vocabulary in social studies. You have vocabulary in science, like soluble and solution. You have vocabulary in mathematics, multiply, divide, addition. And so I think, it's proven, it's tested, it's tried constantly over and over. And students always do well when they use an integrated approach, or when they are taken in that way.
So this grade 6 remediation, this intervention, that's going for how many weeks, Mr. O'Dean?
It's going for 6 weeks.
It's eight.
Six more weeks.
Yes, 6 more weeks.
Yeah, 6 more weeks. And this is nationwide.
Yes, it is in all schools
All
throughout the
primary
country,
schools.
all the grade 6 programs.
And they've been all provided with the relevant schemes of work and information and tools necessary to roll this program out.
Yes, they have been provided with all the information, and in addition, we're doing a pre-test to determine where students are at and what their learning needs are at. And so we will use the information from the pre-test to make certain that we meet their learning needs.
Of course, as long as there's a pre-test, there must be a post-test.
And
This is part of the best practice of this program, so that you're actually able to determine the growth along the continuum of a student.
Yes.
who their entry-level behaviors, has been measured, and of course the exit level behaviors. Now you can have a comparison. I like that. When we have executed this program, what are the possible outcomes that we're looking for? What are some of the outcomes that we could, say that we want to see at the end of this program?
Certainly in terms of what the pre-test and the post-test is telling us, we're hoping to see a significant increase in student achievement levels in both literacy and math. But I think that more importantly, we're trying to see if students are more emotionally involved in their learning, that learning is fun for them. So we want to make certain that certainly these things are happening to students. Also in terms of the teaching expertise of teachers, we are certainly asking them to teach a little bit different, to make learning a little bit more fun. Because as you know, learning is an emotional experience.
Right.
And certainly if we get students emotionally involved and like the learning that's taking place, then certainly their attendance level and their achievement levels are going to increase.
And of course, not only attendance, but also performance.
Yes.
This is something that's critical to achieving the benchmark set.
Yes.
Samantha, we making use of the standards. Where does all of this tie in? Because teachers have been asked to deliver a scheme of work. How does this tie in with the standards?
Okay. We have decided that before we prepare the schemes of work for the program, that we are aiming to ensure that our children who are targeted through this program leave being able to achieve certain benchmarks. For example, we want them to be able to write their names. We want them to be able to know the songs of letters. We want them to be able to read. And those are just a few for the literacy. For the numeracy, we want them to be able to perform basic operations. For example, to add, subtract, multiply, and things like that. So with that in mind, knowing what we want to achieve, we then prepared the materials that will help us to support that. So everything that was done, the pretest that was done, as well as the schemes which were prepared, were done with the standards in mind, so that we know we are working towards achieving certain things.
Great. So it's a really very intricate and integrated approach.
Yeah.
Not only in the curricula, but also in the planning process and the execution of this entire program. Grace, I heard you mention previously that the parents and from the socioeconomic perspective, those in the home, they have got a part here to play. What's the message that you would want to send out to those parents, in terms of parents especially who've got their children in the grade 6?
I would say to parents who have their children already in the grade 6 classes enjoying the intervention, to ensure that they continue to send their children to school. Learning has only just begun. Learning is still taking place. To the parents who have not been sending their children to school because they think that grade 6 is over,
Yes, that's
I
one
would
of the
wish, and my sincere wish is that they are going to send their children to school. If we really want our children to have freedom to make the right choices, freedom to take their rightful positions in society, I don't think socioeconomic problems should keep them away from the classroom. So I would want to say to them, make the sacrifice and send your child to school. Maybe some of them have the mindset that grade 6 assessment is over, nothing else is happening in the classroom. That's not correct. As Samantha said, those who are not involved in the intervention still has an enrichment program. For all the concepts they may have missed along the way, teachers are working with them so that they'll catch up. For when they get to grade 7, they're not really left back. So I just hope that they're going to send their children to school.
We're talking issues in education here. We've got Mr. Mohammed Odin, head of the National Literacy Unit, Ms. Samantha Williams, education officer, and Mrs. Grace Bromell, the National Literacy Coordinator for Schools. And we are talking about issues in education. Mr. Odin, we've said so much, you know. There's still one other thing I'd like to hear you highlight and probably present. What are your plans for the future as it relates to other interventions and maybe getting the adult spectrum involved here in remediation and things like that? Any plans?
Mr. Greenwich, as you know, I've just joined the unit, but there are a couple of things that I would like to do in terms of the formal school system. I'd like to certainly promote best practices in literacy education throughout the school system, which means that things like guided reading, process writing, read alouds, and those kinds of things that are happening in school. Certainly, to make certain that every child in the school system gets the best literacy education possible. The other thing in terms of adult education, I think that we have to spend more time concentrating on meeting the literacy needs of young adults who are experiencing severe difficulties where it comes to literacy. And I think for us to do that, it means that we have to reach out to community members and community organizations and to businesses, because ultimately, who benefits? One, the businesses and organizations benefit. And secondly, the individual benefit. And thirdly, I think the nation benefits. So we need to build partnerships and make certain that every individual who has a literacy need that is not being met, that those needs are met, so that people can be active participants in this country and certainly promote themselves and promote the betterment of the society.
So true. We could go on and just continue to discuss literacy, but our time is so short that we have got to put the cap on this now, and maybe let's start with the ladies this time. Grace, your closing remarks.
I would want to say that the home and the school are forever married to each other. And if we're really going to be successful at having literate citizens, it must begin in the home. So I would wish that parents will become readers, they will become teachers in the home, so that when they send the children to school, the teacher can pick up from there. And so we have our children progressing rapidly. More often than not, children come to school with limited literacy skills. In the home, a simple activity they can do is to tag the stuff in the home, tag the chair, CHAIR, tag the bed, BD, tag the table, TABLE. And you don't have to teach children to spell those after a while.
Okay.
So they can begin there, and when they get to the classroom, teachers will do the rest.
Good strategy, very good strategy. Our time is virtually gone, so Samantha, we've got 20 seconds to wrap it up.
Okay, what I would like to say to the parents out there is that the greatest good that they can do, this is echoing, of course, the words that were said by a wise man. The greatest good that they can do for their children is not to fish for them, but to teach them how to fish. And so I want to just urge and implore the parents, please send your children out to school. Give them the opportunity so that they can learn how to fish for themselves, so that when they get older, they can earn a living for themselves. School is a good place to start for them to get them to learn the necessary skills and knowledge that they need that will help them to contribute meaningfully to the society.
So, after having said so much, we just like to make the point that parents need to be involved, or teachers, hardworking teachers who want you to be involved. And we want you to know that the team at the National Literacy Unit, we are here willing to support you. And as we leave you, let's remember that the more we read together, the more literate